Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Topic. Now this week, I'm taking some Dilophosaurus juice to the face. I'm Alex.
That sounds mighty grim. And I'm investigating illegal dinosaur breeding sites. And I'm Dan. And this week, Alex, we are going to do our full review of Jurassic World Dominion with the help of some of our listeners.
Yes, we've got plenty of social media input and a voice message to boot. We always find, Dan, don't we, that the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World reviews tend to go down well with the listeners.
It does.
And we often get a lot of input. And you guys did not disappoint this week. So, yeah, looking forward to going through the thoughts and reviews of those guys in just a little bit. But before we get into that, Dan, what have you been up to? I mean, it hasn't been long since we last seen each other, really. It's just been just under a week. So, anything of note, anything to share with myself and the listener?
Well, if anyone didn't tune into the Moon Knight episode, of course,
And
if you're
how
not a
dare
Marvel
you.
fan, that's fair.
Uh-huh.
On that episode, I mentioned I've been watching The Orville on Disney Plus with Seth MacFarlane, bit of a man crush. Currently burned through season 1, just started season 2. It's fantastic. So if you haven't checked out The Orville and you like Star Trek with a bit of humour, that's probably going to be up your street. And on Friday, Alex, I watched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness for the second time. Yes, that would be right. And I sat down with my other half, because of course it went on Disney Plus last week. And she really loved it. And I still enjoyed it as much as I did in the cinema. But I've still got beef with the Illuminati scene.
Yeah, and it is fair to say Claire hadn't seen it before. Was that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So she'll see it for the first time. And perhaps if she reflects, she might have some differing opinions. But yeah, I think a lot of the internet have problems with just how robust the Illuminati were. So I don't think I've changed my opinion on that fact. But I've also started it. I haven't got too far in, as is my lifestyle. I can't tend to sit down for too long, not because I've got ADHD. There's nothing wrong with that if I did. Just with a family and home life, you rarely get time to sit down for long chunks of time. So I'm making my way through it. But yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Benedict has done, again, a blinding effort. And for those who do like Marvel films, haven't caught our review, I'll put it in the description below, or have a look. Just a couple of weeks ago, we covered the review. So it's all there for you to get involved and have a listen to our review.
Definitely. Go check them out.
Go check it out.
So I guess that's really it. I mean, it's not been long since we last recorded. So let's dive straight into Dominion.
Let's take off our clothes. Let's dive straight in and swim in the calm seas of I don't know where I'm going with this, Jurassic World Dominion.
I mean, I was already starting to strip naked. I mean, there's no ocean near me as such. I mean, I've got the bath as a stone throw. I can get into that.
I'm disappointed, Dan, because I'm constantly on high alert, and I'm currently naked as we speak. So,
oh gosh,
yeah. Anyway, I'll leave that little nugget, that little Easter egg in your mind. Let's go for some key facts here, Dan. So it was released on the 10th of June this year of recording, 2022. Directed by Colin Trevorrow, makes a return following the previous Fallen Kingdom outing. The budget, Dan, was 185 million smackers.
I mean, it's not, that's still quite a lot of money.
It's not small change.
No, and given that there's been a lot of pauses across the world, since 2020, had the pandemic. I know we sort of mentioned this back in the weekly roundup days when we used to do our monthly roundups. So it's taken about a year longer, hasn't it, to come onto the big screen?
Yeah. And now currently at box office, it's currently taking 621 million. Which surprised me because the way which the media are handling the film, it would sound it's at least half of that. But no, it's 621 and it's roughly tracking for around 740. Which isn't bad.
No.
It's not a bum, a bum deal. And so far is ranking 7th in 2022's box office takings.
I think Top Gun Maverick's top of that now, isn't it? It's just smashed the $1 billion mark.
Yeah, as of recording this week, it's hit that, and it'll probably take home some more as well. So there's no slowing down Tom Cruise and his wonderful, wonderful depiction of glorified war games. But yes, it's not doing too badly. Should we go for a general synopsis and then do a breakdown?
Yeah, let's do it. So, Dominion actually takes place 4 years after the destruction of Isla Nublar. So, of course, that blew up with some of the dinosaurs, massive volcano, and you can go check out our breakdown on that. It's only 20 minutes long, actually, Alex. I was checking this out on Sunday.
Is it?
Yeah, and it's one of our most listened to episodes, believe it or not. So we can put that in the description below as well. And of course, dinosaurs are now living and hunting alongside humans all over the world. Now, this fragile balance will reshape the future and determine once and for all whether human beings are to remain the apex predators of planet Earth, or are they now to share the planet with history's most fearsome creatures.
And I've got a lot of problems with that synopsis because, well, we'll find out in a couple of moments. But that at least is what they say on the tin. But is that exactly what we end up getting for our money when we went to the cinema, Dan?
Indeed. Before we go straight into the plot, we should probably dust off the old klaxon, the spoiler warning, and we're going to put that in right now. So if you're still here, you've been warned.
Yeah, it's the past the point of no return, and we're going to get into it, Dan. So do you want to kick us off?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, this starts 4 years after the cataclysmic volcanic eruption on Isla Nublar and the Lockwood Estate incident, of course, where all the dinosaurs were let loose by Macy into the wild, and de-extinct dinosaurs freely roam the earth, causing environmental upheaval and human deaths.
Indeed.
So with the government approval, Biosin Genetics, so we've got another bloody genetic lab in the world. They've established a dinosaur sanctuary in Italy's Dolomite Mountains. Beautiful location.
That was lovely. Shout out to our Italian listeners and their lovely, friendly people and beautiful countryside.
So Biosin are conducting genomics research, ostensibly seeking groundbreaking pharmacological and agronomic applications.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've already put big words into my notes. This is ridiculous. I mean, I already have a hard time pronouncing names across the years of On the Topic and the weekly roundup.
But essentially, we talk about drugs and farmland.
Yes. We find Claire Deering, Zia Rodriguez, and Franklin Webb still with the Dinosaur Protection Group, investigating illegal dinosaur breeding sites, much like myself. While Claire's partner, Owen Grady, he's working as a wrangler, so he's helping to relocate stray dinosaurs. So great scene, actually, where he's on a horse with some other chaps, chasing down, I don't know what dinosaur it was, got a lasso going on, and he hooks one and brings it down, and he does the whole hand thing, as he did with the raptors in Jurassic World, and he calms this thing down.
He loves the hand thing, doesn't he? Putting out his palm and calming him down. He absolutely loves it.
Indeed. However, we do find Claire and Owen. They're living in a remote cabin in the Sierra Nevada mountains, lovely snowy mountains. Another beautiful location.
Here we go, Dan. He was trying to tame a Parasaurolophus. Jesus, I've got the Dan juice now. Parasaurolophus. Anyway, one of those things with the the soft horn at the back of its head.
Yeah.
The go faster horn.
Vegisaurus.
Yes.
But they are secretly raising the 14-year-old Maisie Lockwood, who basically clung on to them after Fallen Kingdom. Well, we believe She's still Benjamin Lockwood's cloned granddaughter. Of course, we'll get onto that shortly. Whilst protecting her from genetic research corporations like Biosin, who they ultimately want her to study her DNA for various nefarious schemes. What is it with all of these genetic research corporations, Alex, in films? Why are they always up to no good?
I don't know, Dan. Yeah, it always seems to be that case for these films. There's always a large company of ill repute who's got, probably because they've got loads of money, Dan. Do you think pharmaceutical companies, usually American ones, big money, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the best baddies have bottomless pockets of money. So I guess it does make sense from that perspective. But they always seem to have an army of mercenaries on hand. Now, I don't know if that's reality. but yeah, they always seem to have a clandestine aspect to their operations. And this one does not disappoint this time around either, does it?
No, I feel like we're bordering on some conspiracy theories here as well. Savage. Anyway, we find Owen, we find Owen's trained velociraptor, Blue, unexpectedly arriving with an asexually reproduced hatchling, which Macy's named Beta.
Yep.
Having grown increasingly frustrated living in seclusion, Maisie, being a typical teenager, has just wandered off, sneaks away from Claire and Owen, and unaware that Biosin operatives have located her. So there's a bit of a dodgy character in a Jeep with binoculars, keeping an eye on her. And of course, they abduct her and capture Beta. Poor Blue gets pushed down some rocks and can't get out. And I mean, if that hadn't happened, I'm pretty sure Blue might have won the fight there.
That'll be the end of the film. Roll credits, and we've saved 2 hours and 30 minutes from there on.
Indeed. Elsewhere, formerly extinct giant locusts, the real pests of the film, have inexplicably reappeared. I mean, did we have giant locusts before? Why have they reappeared?
Yeah, I don't recognise them in the previous film.
Makes zero sense. But anyway, with massive swarms wiping out crops. And of course, these crops are not bison seed. So it's the bison seeds that are being left uneaten, raising suspicions they are created. It was bison that created the locusts.
There you go.
Enter Dr. Ellie Sattler. I've slipped into her DMs again, Alex.
Woof.
And if anyone listens to the previous episode, they'll know what I mean. Believing the locusts may date the Cretaceous period, Ellie approaches former partner and paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant. Do you know what? I love that scene. We knew that the old cast were going to be it anyway, but as soon as you see Alan Grant, you get that little bit of Jurassic Park music.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
It's just a beautiful bit
it's
of
a lovely
music.
nod back to the first film. And it kind of, this whole film's gone full circle. But that's exactly, I guess, how we see Alan the first time around, isn't it? When we have John Hammond, played by Richard Attenborough, and he lands, doesn't he, in the helicopter, and the dust is whirling around everywhere, and he's in this sweaty, hot caravan, and we find him this time. Isn't he lecturing some kids who are on their phones and not really interested, but he's got some very wise words. And it's just very reminiscent. And that's a tone, I guess, that's throughout the film, isn't it? Which is just lots of nostalgia of the original film, the original series, which they're playing on. And that's definitely a chord or a card they play very early on.
Franklin, who he's decided he's going to quit his job, and he's now with the CIA's dinosaur unit. He discovers that Macy and Beta were likely taken to Malta. Now, you didn't like this scene, did you, Alex?
No, the whole section was a load of guff. It wasn't for me.
Yeah, whereas otherwise I really enjoyed it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because that's how I imagined that what a black market with dinosaurs would look like. I thought it was quite good, but I mean, it's not often we disagree on this sort of stuff.
No.
Is, I mean, it makes for different listening, I guess.
It does.
So, of course, Claire and Owen, they head off to Malta. They arrive and infiltrate the dinosaur black market. When authorities launch a raid, predator dinosaurs are unleashed, causing havoc. No, I'm not going to lie, Alex. I thought it was hilarious when they're in like it's almost like a square, isn't it? I think
Yes,
I liken it to maybe something like Guildhall Square in Portsmouth.
Yeah, it's a piazza of some description. I don't think the Maltese call it that, but it's a large open space.
Yeah. Poor bloke on his scooter. I mean, I don't know how you don't notice two massive fucking dinosaurs, big meat eater bastards with massive teeth. But he gets chomped.
He gets chomped.
That silly prick gets chomped.
Oh
well. But yeah, I mean, I've moved on a bit too far here, but we enter Barry Sembien. I think I've got his name right there. It's a bit French. Who is Owen's former Jurassic World colleague, who was working undercover in Malta. And he informs them that Maisie and Beta are being transported to Bison's secluded Italian headquarters in the Dolomites.
Fun fact, played by Omar Sy, who was in the previous film. He actually plays Lupin.
Lupin.
That's it. And I think things to watch during lockdown. That was one of my top picks. That's just 2 seasons, and I think they're just finished or finishing season 3. It's very clever TV. It's a heist TV program. Omar is the lead character, the lead actor, and it's a lovely program. It's subtitled, not an awful lot of English in it. Not a bad thing, I'm sure most of us can read, but that's just to say that it's a little bit different than probably the usual programs that you come across. But it's well worth persevering with, and it's a wonderful program, very cleverly written, and Omar is a brilliant actor. Now he's largely lowballed on this. Only has probably 5 minutes worth of scenes, but he's a great actor, and I'm glad to see him again because he's a brilliant casting.
I feel like he probably deserved a bit better in this film, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit more time, I think, would have done him good.
Yeah. Anyway, there's those weird, crazy raptors. They're not like the usual raptors. They're slightly bigger. And of course, we see the bloody laser gun thing come out again from Forbidden Kingdom. And so they get chased through Malta. But of course, we enter a character called Kayla Watts, so new to the Jurassic World series. He's a sympathetic cargo pilot who flies Claire and Owen to Italy. Now,
she's played by DeWanda Wise, and actually, I thought she was pretty good, actually, in terms of a new cast member. I think she mixed things up. A little bit of light relief, bit of no-nonsense, female power. I liked her, actually. I thought she was a good, decent casting.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I thought she was very good as well. Over in Italy, we now see chaos theorist Dr. Ian Malcolm, played by our favourite Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, yeah.
And now he's working for Bison. And he sought Ellie's help to expose CEO Dr. Lewis Dodson.
Dodson,
we've got Dodson here!
His illegal activities after being tipped off by communications director Ramsey Cole. Another thing I liked about Ramsey, Alex, and me and my other half were talking about this in the car on the way home. You didn't really know what side Ramsey was on.
No. Played by Mamadou Athey. Hopefully I've pronounced that correct. And yeah, I agree. It kind of kept the audience guessing. Now, Dan, do you think that was clever writing and direction, or do you think that was clumsy happenstance that the audience never kind of really knew until perhaps the end credits?
I think it might be a bit of clever writing.
Okay.
Only because I sort of felt like I kept guessing it to, is he really a good guy, or was there a bit of villainous behaviour behind him? But yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts on Ramsey Cole?
Good. A good addition in the end. I like to think it's good acting. I'm just not good writing. His acting there's nothing wrong with it. I don't know if it was that one intended, but either way, I think you're right. I think it complemented the storyline because you're never too sure whether, twists and turns, whether he's going to stab them in the back or sell them short, or he's always in on it. But no, it ends up that he's a supporter of our original cast.
Yeah. Well, I've sort of just gone towards the next page of my notes. And I've got a bloody dinosaur in my notes. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pronounce later. Anyway, it's revealed that the company geneticist Dr. Henry Wu genetically engineered the locusts to avoid bias in crops to control the world's food supply.
That's right.
I mean, again, I don't know why you would do that, but here we are. Wu now denounces this plan, citing it would cause global famine. I mean, of course it would. These massive fucking locusts going around eating the food. Good one, mate.
Go figure. That's what they do. And they've been genetically altered to only be interested in non-biocin crops.
Mm.
And I don't want to get too into film bashing, but I mean, it'd be remiss me not to mention it. I do struggle with that concept, Dan, because surely, as Ellie did, it doesn't take an absolute scientist to work out that there's a trend here. And surely the authorities would go, all right, why are they not touching biocin crops? And why is everyone now selling biocin seed? And surely there's something behind this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just seems very odd that it's quite an obvious kind of pitfall for the world to fall into, and no one would make that assumption. You know what I mean? It just seems very weak and something which clearly people very quickly would be able to understand. But also combat. You know, I just can't believe that modern forms of pesticides wouldn't even affect these Jurassic era insects. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this next bit, which I'm going to talk about, I don't want to go into too much. I've put into my likes and dislikes. I've got a bit of beef, I'm not going to lie. So anyway, Wu, he meets Macy and explains that Charlotte Lockwood, who was Benjamin Lockwood's daughter and Wu's former colleague, used her own DNA to asexually conceive, giving birth to the genetically identical Macy. She altered Macy's DNA to prevent her from inheriting the fatal disease which she had. I can't remember what disease she had in the end, but that presumably that's what she died of, and not of a car in a car crash.
Yeah.
Wu believes that Macy and Beta's asexual conceptions and DNA are the key to creating a pathogen that's going to stop this locust outbreak. Now, upon reaching Biotin aerospace, this is the dinosaur, Alex, Quetzalcoatlus.
I'll do.
It attacks the plane, which Kayla's obviously piloting, causing Owen and Kayla to crash land while Claire ejects. I mean, these little bastards, they're all attacking a parachute. Yeah. It's quite terrifying.
Pecking holes. Quite a nicely shot scene, actually, where the camera kind of sticks with her as she ejects all the way through to when she lands. And you can see these evil little, they're not little actually, these evil pterodactyl-like dinosaurs pecking holes in a parachute. It's quite a nice shot.
Yeah. I mean, they all managed to regroup, but not without encountering some creepy dinosaurs. So, I mean, I didn't put this in my notes, but certainly something that sticks in the back of my mind was that it brought back that horror element, especially around Claire and the Therizonosaurus.
Yep.
I mean, this thing's pretty much blind from what I could tell, but its claws are massive.
Yeah.
And
mental.
She's crawling along the forest ground and gets into water, and this thing is just directly over her, just having a sniff. It's
stalking her. It's it definitely, again, reminiscent of, I think, the previous film where the spliced raptor thing.
Oh, the Indoraptor.
Ends up, stalking its prey and having that kind of that alien-esque type vibe. It works in this though. It really does work because, as you say, Dan, she's dropped into the wilderness. So it definitely has a place, and it's a really good scene.
Yeah, and Owen and Kayla come across a Pyroraptor. So this thing's got feathers. It looks quite beautiful, but it can swim under ice in water. but they manage to escape. It gets tasered, if I recall.
It does, yes. It takes a shot to the face, I think.
It's a beautiful scene, especially if you love tasers. Inside Bison, Ellie and Alan access the restricted lab and steal a locust sample. Not before they all bloody escape. And, well, Joe, I thought they were brown bread. I'm not going to lie. I genuinely thought one of them might have met their grisly end because these locusts are all over the place.
Yeah.
But they escape. They encounter Maisie, who agrees to leave with them. I mean, they're both very trusting people, you know. I would...
How can you not trust that beautiful face of Sam Neill and Laura Dern?
He looks great as a silver fox as well.
He does.
He's the great peppered beard.
Yeah, he looks good. Probably looks the best out of the lot. Well, Jeff hasn't done too bad, to be fair. But no,
handsome bastard.
Yeah, and he's actually really, really good. I think we said this before, but in Peaky Blinders, I think he's in the first 2 seasons, definitely season 1 of it, and he's brilliant as a Northern Irish copper. So yeah, I have a very soft spot for Sam Neill as of late because he's a wonderful actor. And I think actually a lot of the original cast stay true to themselves in this film. I know there's some differing opinions on that topic, but certainly it's the Sam Neill that we all know and love, in my opinion.
Yeah, the thing I liked about Alan in this as well was, I think we've mentioned this in the previous episode, and I generally thought that in Jurassic Park 3 he lost that paternal instinct, which he got in Jurassic Park. You know, he was looking after Tim and Ellie. But he sort of seemed to not be non-existent in Jurassic Park 3, but they've pulled that back.
Yeah. In
this for sure, especially around Maisie. You know, he's always checking on her, making sure she's okay, which is brilliant. Talking to Sam Neill as well, I think I mentioned this in cancelled TV shows. I thought he did a very good job in Alcatraz from back in 2012, which is like a lost version of... it's basically prisoners coming back into Alcatraz from back in time. They make it onto land and they all commit like nasty, horrible crimes. It's well worth the watch, actually, if anyone can get hold of it. But it never saw beyond season 1, which is a shame. It was left on a massive cliffhanger.
Those bastard writers, eh?
Indeed. Right, where are we? So, discovering the breach, Dodson incinerates the locusts, turns them into a big fiery hell, but of course they escape, and causing a forest fire, which forces a site-wide evacuation. He's fuming. You know, he's losing all of his money.
Oh, yes.
Alan, Ellie and Maisie barely escape the facility. They go through like a tube, don't they? It's like an underground tunnel.
Yes.
And they come across, I can't quite remember what the dinosaurs were.
They go into the mines. It's a Spinosaurus.
The Spinosaurus.
Yeah. So it's a brand new dinosaur that we haven't seen in the franchise. And I mean, it's not a made up dinosaur. Well, it's not. It's one of the classics. Big old frilly thing on its back, quite long, almost like a lizard.
Yeah.
And it makes its debut. And yeah, it's a really, really good couple of scenes actually with that dinosaur. Very, very well done.
Yeah. Oh, the tube thing's called the Hyperloop.
That's the one, the Hyperloop.
Yeah. It's quite a good scene as well, because again, you know something's going to happen, but it happens unexpectedly.
Yeah.
So you know they're there because they show a glimpse of one of the sort of scaly things sort of hovering slithering out of the water. And then it just screams at one of them. I think it was Alan Grant. And I remember shitting myself in the cinema. And my other half just like grabbing my hand and was just clenched. I genuinely thought she was going to break my hand. I hope she didn't grab your hand as well, Alex. Quite painful.
She grabbed my thigh, Dan. I wasn't going to mention it to you or on there. Not going to lie, and they made me a little bit uncomfortable. I'm sure you'll have words after this episode. I took it in good jest. The bruise just about gone down just a week later. So
good.
Yeah, I'm just recovering. But yes, it was a very, very good jump scare, and as you say, there was a bit of foreshadowing, wasn't expected, and very well delivered.
They manage to escape, where they find Ian Malcolm outside the cave, and they join up with Owen, Claire, and Kayla. Now, of course, Claire, bless her, she's about to get attacked by some Dilophosaurus, and thankfully Owen comes along, grabs one of them, basically flings it across the forest. He picks it up by the throat. Nasty bastards, spitting their shit everywhere. Meanwhile, Dodson, he's fleeing with the dinosaur embryos again. Nice little nod as well with the shaving can. So it's the same Dodson we see at the start of Jurassic Park with Dennis Nedry. I always thought it was Dodson, but it's Dodson.
It's the accent's Dodson, and he's got the embryo carrying can, which started all of this, of course, back in 30 years ago now.
Yeah. 1993. Jesus. And again, if people want to hear our 25th birthday review, that's a good one to dive into.
Oh, it is.
And we went behind the scenes as well, which was a fun episode. How they made the dinosaur roar, and it's a fantastic episode. I mean, we talked about robotic Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, how someone nearly got themselves sliced open when they were inside with moving gears and the rest of it, and hurricanes, which caused a pause to filming, and how that affected Sam Jackson's end. Really good episode, actually. We should do more behind the scenes of beloved films, but that was a really fun one because I think we both learned some stuff because we didn't share the notes, and really insightful. So if you want to learn more about the filming of Jurassic Park, it's a really good one to listen to. Don't just take my word for it, our word for it. Go give it a listen.
100%. Now, of course, the power gets rerouted, and poor Dodson gets trapped in the tunnel and is unfortunately killed by 3 Dilophosaurus. I mean, those pesky bastards get everywhere.
They do.
Elsewhere, the electronic implants in the dinosaurs, some of them to, I guess, like a compound which protects them from the fire.
Yeah, it's where they all started at the beginning of the film. This is, the working space of the people in this sanctuary. They're recalled within the walls of this building. It doesn't sound like a very smart relocation protocol, though, because if you need to recall all the dinosaurs, where are all the people going to go? Because they're inhabiting the same open space as the people would.
Yeah.
During an emergency. So I don't really see how that could work. But what they've effectively done is they've got now a holding pen of a finite size, whereas before they had a much larger area. Not like open countryside. This is within the walls of a large complex. And it's effectively a fighting arena they've created.
Just bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
Bad idea, Dan. That's what it is.
Yeah. Owen's managed to find Beta anyway. He tranquilizes it, puts Beta on his back to, Jeff Goldblum going, is that a dinosaur on your back?
It's like wearing like a shawl, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like a scarf.
Jeff Goldblum sort of just brings light relief here and there as well. I did like the fact that he sort of questioned, you named it? Like why would you name a dinosaur? Funny enough, I've got a friend lives over in Northern Ireland. He's got 6 sheep, and to some of the farmers' dismay around him, he has named his sheep, and they say the exact same thing. Why would you name your sheep? He's like, well, I love them. They're my pets, and of course, farmers, they get rid of their sheep to
eat them.
To eat them, yeah. I mean, you sell them, but no, he's very attached to his sheep. Bless him. Just a little side story there.
There you go.
Of course, what is an OTT episode without a bit of digression?
Indeed.
Now, we didn't mention the Giganotosaurus. Jesus Christ.
Giganotosaurus.
Yeah, this bastard's reappeared. Now, what wasn't in my notes, there was a scene when they're heading off to try and reroute the power, where I think Macy's climbing up some stairs and it latches onto the ladder.
Yes.
It's horrific. It's generally quite terrifying. And again, I thought someone was going to die. I mean, even Ian Malcolm, he was like waving his branch, which was on fire. I thought, nah, this is it. One of them's going to die, but they all escape. But anyway, that was before this. Now, of course, this thing's returned. Threatens his group, but of course, good old Rexy and that Therizinosaurus comes along and kills it off, basically.
Oh, yes.
If I recall, Rexy, I mean, I genuinely thought Rexy was going to cark it as well, but she didn't.
No, nearly out for the count. I guess almost similar to every other film that she's featured in, where it looks like she's outnumbered by the latest or greatest dinosaur, but ends up getting the upper hand and surviving.
Rexy barges the Jesus. So this is quite a mouthful. Just barges it anyway, and onto the Therizinosaurus's big fucking claws. Wu comes along, and they're like, "No, we're going to leave you here." But he pleads his innocence. He says, "Like, look, I know how to get rid of these fucking locusts. Can I come with you?" So he joins them in the helicopter. Later on, back home, Ellie and Alan rekindle their relationship before testifying alongside Ian and Ramsey against Bison.
Yes.
Owen, Claire, and Macy return home and reunite Beta with Blue. And last, we find Wu. He discovers and releases a pathogen to eradicate the locusts. Around the world, dinosaurs adapt to coexist with modern animals, while the United Nations declares Bison Valley a dinosaur sanctuary. And of course, if you were waiting for a cutscene, there were none. I think
there's nothing.
We are spoiled with some films, especially with Marvel. But yeah, no cutscenes in this one, I'm afraid. So that's the plot. I know we sort of probably missed a few bits out, but it's a rough one.
It is. So Dan, give us your thoughts then. So what's the bits that you liked? What are the bits that you didn't like? And let's have a listen to the critics, but also the listeners.
Indeed. So my likes, as I mentioned earlier, I really enjoyed the black market scene in Malta.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of found the chasing sort of quite high octane. I was sort of on the edge of my seat. I know it's probably not for everyone, and the gimmicky laser guns pointing them at people and making the raptors chase after him. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Bit of, I was talking to my friend Phil about this last night, and he compared it to Mission Impossible.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You got Owen Grady on the bike. He bloody going for it on the runway, and he managed to get onto the plane. Not without a bloody raptor, almost getting on there with him.
Yes.
But yeah, he kicks that bastard out when they're basically eye in the sky. But yeah, no, one of my favourite scenes for sure. And what's not to like about a big meaty dinosaur eating a bastard on a scooter?
Mm.
I also like the horror elements and the suspense.
Yes. Yeah,
certainly pulls on the Fallen Kingdom vibes at times. It gives it a bit of continuity for that film. And it's just good to see the Holy Trinity. Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Ian Malcolm.
Oh, yes.
They do bring a lot of joy at times and a bit of relief, especially at times where I started to feel like I was sort of becoming a bit uninvested.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to sort of stay in the storyline, especially when it's, we'll talk about this. Let's go into my dislikes. Nice little segue.
Mm.
I mean, it feels like the film was more about locusts than dinosaurs. The locusts were the real pests and, not the dinosaurs that are now roaming the world with us. The storyline, it feels more like two storylines colliding.
Yeah.
I mean, it works in the sense that, you get the two parties, they meet, and of course, bring down Bison. But I find it kind of hurts films if you're doing the two storyline thing. I compare to X-Men 3.
Yeah. If you cram a film too much of storyline, you'll lose the audience because they won't know what to focus on. Actually, do neither a service because you run out of time. And they end up being quite weak. And I think that's kind of what we've found here. It's you do neither one justice because actually there's not an awful lot of time to really play. Was it 2.5 hours, give or take, in terms of runtime?
Yeah.
And whilst you spend a good first third of the film, which is just absolute guff, you kind of wasted an awful lot of then clawback for the middle part, the build up then to crescendo, which is the end and the finale. So yeah, I 100% agree that it did feel like two different films.
And my last dislike. Now this is, you'll remember earlier I mentioned about the whole asexual breeding thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What the fuck, right? What was the point of the clone story?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because in my opinion, and this is purely theory, of course we had the backlash from Fallen Kingdom.
Yes.
About the cloning of humans. Did they just
which was what we said at the end of the end of the last film. We even commented that felt like an odd curveball, like that it kind of was bolted on. You know, you had the dinosaurs, and then they were being auctioned. Okay, fine, maybe, but yeah, to throw in that aspect felt very, very odd to that film, and yeah, to then continue onto this where it didn't really have any kind of grounding or meaning. It kind of felt like they were just kind of trying to make sense of something that didn't really feel like it had a place at all.
I mean, this is the whole reason, Hammond and Lockwood apparently fell out about cloning humans. Yeah. But you've basically made that backstory null and void now.
Yes.
Because Macy is essentially, asexually produced.
Mm-hmm.
The clone thing makes no sense. But that's my likes and dislikes. Overall thoughts. If you take it for what it is, I actually really enjoyed it. It definitely has its moments, and it does play the nostalgia card, which I do enjoy sometimes, especially with films like No Way Home and Star Wars: Rise of the Skywalker. Maybe not for everyone. I get that Hollywood is, perhaps running out of ideas, and they have to pull on that nostalgia card to win, say, people like me and yourself over. I love the old Jurassic Park films. And it's nice to see the original cast. It's nice to bring them back into the fray and getting their teeth in. But yeah, that's my likes, dislikes, and overall thoughts. What are yours, Alex?
Favourite bits, Dan? Yeah, I mean, the original cast, I think, were well delivered and well handled. I think there's some viewpoints that people don't quite believe or think that. I think you shared something with Dan, didn't you, about Dr. Ian Malcolm and how like he's turned on his head almost, and he's not true to kind of his cynicism and the world hating kind of standpoint of Jurassic Park 30 years before. And I kind of respectfully disagree, because you talk about 30 years of being jaded and actually getting accustomed to the failures of every other single park, and I've seen every single island that's burnt down or opened and closed, and he still has that joking kind of the world, joking, not joking, the world is doomed in his lecture, this sanctuary. So I respectfully think actually that all of the original cast came back and I think were true to themselves. If you fast forward 30 years, and yeah, I think we both said we had some reservations about the cast coming back. And I think it worked in the second half of the film.
Yeah, for sure.
The first half, it didn't. It's very odd. We'll come to why I think is odd in a moment. But I think it worked out in the end. And actually, they blended quite nicely in the final act of the film with the original, with the Jurassic World cast. So yeah, I think it worked. I think that one was handled very well, and it's really enjoyable to see them come back. We had that payoff, didn't we? With Ellie and with Alan. Yeah, they smooch. It's what we wanted for 30 years, and we got it.
Finally, yeah, exactly.
All right, come on, guys. So yeah, I think they were the biggest ones for me. Yeah, we mentioned about the jump scares. I thought were really well delivered. I don't think they were gratuitous. I think films these days they're almost very well signposted, and they're going to happen because there's a lingering shot, or I don't know, there's an obvious situation where a light switch is turned off. It's going to come back on. It's those kind of things that Dan, that they're going to happen, aren't they? But in this one, as you mentioned, with the Spinosaurus in the mines, I thought was very well done. And then Dilophosauruses and the rest of it, I thought they were great. So yeah, I thought it was very well handled, and you had those elements of horror, which we was so well handled in the original film. We talked again about behind the scenes in the film review when they did the re-release in 2019 or 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And how you get like 6 minutes worth of dinos on screen, and the rest is just about misdirection or a moving bush here or a shadow there. And I think there was elements of that in this, and that's kind of what people loved about Jurassic Park, because it was kind of a soft horror. And we got those kind of elements in this film. So I really enjoyed that. This is a good and a bad thing, Dan. And I'm still at odds with it, as I say it out loud. I haven't really kind of reconciled it. But it kind of felt like it was a medley of all the prior films, all 6 or 7 of them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
they sort of tried to bring it all together, didn't they?
Yeah, they had all of the big Jurassic Park and Jurassic World set pieces. So you mentioned with the scene with Claire being stalked in the forest in the water. We had that in the first Jurassic World. We had the T-Rex back again. I mean, you could argue that the fans would be of uproar if you didn't have Rexy, but T-Rex there who's duking it out with other dinosaurs. That's in every single film. You had the flare scene, so we're coming full circle now. It's Dr. Ian Malcolm who's now waving the flares to try and distract the dinosaurs away from his budding friends, the survivors. The hiding of the kids in the kitchen in Jurassic Park. We now got the adults hiding behind the car as the dinosaurs edging its way around the corners. The hands out to the raptors. Well, you've got hands out to other dinosaurs. You got the Dilophosaurus attacks. I mean, I could go on, but it just feels like it's these little notes of other parts of the film. And I think that's probably intentional, because it doesn't look like it's going to be another follow-up film to this. I think that's probably the right thing to do now. It's time to hang up the dinosaur claws and to let them become dinosaur bones once more. But because of that, I think they're kind of doing these nods to other films. I liked it. I thought it was a nice kind of, they're doing that. And I recognize this. But it kind of also felt like they'd run out of ideas. They did so many of them. I just felt a little bit overwhelmed and like, oh, right, well, what else they're going to do? Because that's a rehash of film 3. And now that's a rehash of the first Jurassic World. And I think they did it over a bit of overkill. But it was nice. Again, I mentioned Dilophosaurus, to see that. After 30 years, I don't think we've seen it again or since, have we, Dan?
No.
So to see that freaky lizard bastard spitting crap in people's faces was great. And of course, then we had new dinosaurs. So yes, you had the Spinosaurus, we had the Pyroraptor, which is a freaky bird with the massive claws, and the Therizinosaurus, as you mentioned earlier. So new dinosaurs, new things to see, new animations, which was great. Not bad. The bits weren't so good. I think the dinosaurs felt like a distraction with the backdrop of a really odd main storyline. Like bias in creating a locust threat and having world dominance of a food supply. And the dinosaurs were like a nuisance to that. This is a dinosaur film. You could conceivably take the concept. You could, going back to Mission Impossible, actually, that sounds like a Mission Impossible film, doesn't it? There is a dangerous, nefarious criminal entity that is looking to threaten the world's food supply. That's straight out of Tom Cruise kind of rule book, right?
Yeah.
That's not a Jurassic Park franchise film. And then you have then dinosaurs roaming in the background. It just felt really, really at odds. And it didn't need to do it. I think they could have taken in, the Battle of Big Rock. And we covered that 10-minute free-to-watch YouTube.
Oh, that was so good. And
direction.
It just turned out to be a bloody news report.
It was a side note. Yeah, it was a footnote. But you could conceivably look at it as a life straight after the events of Fallen Kingdom and, the spread of the dinosaurs and the events, people getting attacked, and it could be like a world survival event. But they've kind of gone, yeah, that happened. But if you didn't see that, don't worry about it. It's condensed into a news report. And 4 years later, we're all living merrily alongside dinosaurs and everyone's having a good time. I do really struggle with that because there's a particular scene where the girl, Maisie, I think Howard makes a very good point in a minute. We'll talk about in terms of remembering the cast and names. But Maisie ventures out to a sawmill. I think you also mentioned this too, but it's very poignant. And there's two big fuck-off brachiosauruses, all the ilk, very large dinosaurs, long necks. And they're kind of like, ooh.
Great impression.
Thank you. Spent many hours preparing for this episode. And they're stomping through the snow. And there's workers just idly stood very nearby these things as they're trundling through this sawmill. They're not backing away. They're not running around. They're just watching these things walk past. And what happens if they stampede? They're going to freaking squash you. And would you really be that chilled? But the Colin Trevorrow and the writing group kind of want us to think that they're that relaxed around these dinosaurs that it's just a commonality. And even if they were, 4 years on from the events of the prior film, they still had the propensity to squish you and to kill you quite easily and by accident. It just felt quite nonchalant, very, very odd. And yeah, I mean, the scene that I struggle with, that I thought was funny, was in Malta, where that guy, he's on an e-scooter. Okay, you might have some headphones on something, but he can see these two dinosaurs are rampaging. There's one rampaging in front of him, the other one's behind him as they're chomping at people, and he's weaving in between them, so he knows what's going to happen. And he gets surprised when he gets eaten. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, you ditch the e-scooter and you'd make a run for it, or I don't know. But he's just like enjoying. He's almost like the dinosaurs aren't there. He's weaving around them, and then he gets caught up by accident by his dinosaur. It's like, that's not a thing. It's not that relaxed that this big fuck off carnivore is chomping around Malta. That's not commonplace. And I think that was quite poorly directed. It shouldn't have ever been written in my opinion, anyway.
I mean, talking of e-scooters as well, though, if you get one of the not so legal ones, they're fucking fast.
Yeah.
I've seen people speed round roundabouts on them. Oh, I mean, I've nearly killed someone, on the roundabout near Fratton Station because someone sped round before I could even see them. But
bastards.
Yeah. But you'd go full power on that bastard.
Yeah, you would. But this guy, no, he's just lived loving life. Well,
he's just like, yeah, all right, mate. Bam, you're gone.
Very odd.
Dino food.
They kind of overdid the British baddie tropes, though. So Soyona Santos, who's played by Adishan Lackman. She's one of the early baddies, but actually ends up being nothing but a means to an end to kind of push the story forwards. And she's in the shadows, and she's kind of telling Henchman to do this and Henchman to do that, and you almost think, okay, who is she? She's someone clearly. But no, she's just a stereotypical British gangster or baddie. It's like, come on, it's kind of been done to death by now. You know what I mean? And she ends up kind of fizzing out. It just seemed lazy for me. Yes, Malta. I didn't like it, Dan. I thought it was a poor man's Star Wars cantina.
Oh, man.
And, there's a particular scene where all hell's breaking loose and the men are still sitting around talking, drinking beer and putting the worlds to rights while these dinosaurs are chomping other punters and running around. Now, you would have heard that going down. These things aren't known for being silent. It just seemed a little bit, I don't know, over the top for me. Wasn't for me that whole section, but the whole first first part of the film I thought was rubbish. I thought it was useless. I thought it had no point. The second and the third acts, I think, really were a Jurassic World film. So
it was quite slow to start with, for sure.
It was building, but there wasn't really anything to build on. It kind of felt like it missed a significant chunk of time and storytelling.
Yeah.
And I finish on the cast. So I said they were good, and they are good, but they do feel shoehorned. And it was a smashing of two different storylines, which we didn't need. And I think it suffered as a result.
Yeah.
Overall for me, Dan, I do mean this. I think it was a fun film associated with the franchise, but it could have been a good spin-off. If it was a spin-off, I think I would have been happy. But as it was part of the main franchise, I think it fell short of my expectations. And I put it here, I think it's good, but by no means is it great. I think if you went to cinema as we did to have a good time, zero expectations, I think we came away thinking, all right, it was okay. I had fun. But it wasn't anywhere near the heights of even Jurassic World, and that wasn't the greatest, but it was far better than Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. Dominion was better than Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
None of them, all of them pale in significance to the original films, of which I love Jurassic Park 3. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but fight me. I think it's great. So
yeah, I mean, I disagree, but then you would disagree with me when I said the Lost World is better. But nope. If we all thought the same thing, life would be very boring.
Most definitely. Now, some people who disagree, Dan, the critics. So we're talking about people who perhaps are less than pleased with the film. Well, one Linwood Barkley. Have you heard of Linwood before?
No, but he sounds like one of those critics that's going to be very brutal.
Well, perhaps. He's a Canadian author, apparently. I looked him up. He's an American-born Canadian author, noted as a novelist, humorist, and columnist. I'm not sure if that makes him a good or bad person, but anyway, he's got an opinion. His popular detective novels are bestsellers in Canada and internationally. Well, this guy says, Linwood says on Twitter, Jurassic World Dominion has the distinction of being the first movie I've walked out on in years. So he thought it was that rubbish. He couldn't bear to sit through to the end, and he walked out on it.
I've got a question. So I was talking about this with one of my colleagues, and I think she must have been referring to Linwood when she was talking about this to me today. Have you ever walked out of a film at the cinema?
No, I wish I had though. But no, I've never, not to my recollection, I've never gone to the effort of going, this is so bad, I've got to call it quits. Yeah, because usually you're invested by then. You spend an awful lot of money on tickets, which aren't cheap. Well, they are cheaper these days, but
£5-6.
But back in the day, they weren't. You spend a lot of money on a ticket. Then you spend a lot of money on refreshments, unless you smuggle them under your coat like we did.
Yeah, we did.
You kind of invested literally and financially in seeing to the end. So no, I haven't. Have you?
No, never. I've walked out of a gig before, but never.
Oh yeah, same.
Never the cinema.
Embarrassingly enough, I say embarrassing because I loved them back in the 2000s. Bowling for Soup.
I mean, I
walked out on them.
Saw them live in 2002. I mean, they were
bad.
Good then, but I mean now they're
so bad. In 2006, I saw them.
Oh, boy.
Out of tune. They weren't playing well together, which is odd because they had a good kind of 10, 15 years of playing together. I just went to the bar, which wasn't in the same room, and just sat in the bar. I did poke my head in when they would play a couple of their singles because obviously they're good ones to sing along to. But otherwise, I'm like, nope, I'm going to sit this one out.
I'm going to go get a beer. Happy days.
And I'm going to drink with some loud background music. But no, I've never not stayed to the end. I should have done obviously for Green Lantern, and probably should have done for Titanic all the way back in 1997. But I sat both those out.
Yeah, I think we've sat sat through many terrible films between us.
There's more than a few to count.
Mm.
Now, other critics, well, on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics have given it a 31%, Dan. It's pretty stinky.
Oh, it's gone up by 1%.
Oh, good. Apparently, Jurassic World Dominion might be a bit of an improvement over its immediate predecessors in some respects, but this franchise has lumbered a long way down from its classic start. The fans said, Dan, 77%. It's probably time to let this franchise rest, it says, but between some entertaining action and the fun of seeing members of the original cast reunited, Jurassic World Dominion is a decent enough sequel. I think that's probably a fair summary. Yeah. I think from my perspective, I don't disagree. So that's what the critics have said, Dan. But what about our listeners? What have we got through the gramophone this week?
First up, we've got Hannah on Twitter. She says, I enjoyed the nostalgic nods to the previous films, but I did think it was all a bit samey. And she's put a little sad face. Mm-hmm. Talking of the future, I know we've sort of touched on like how far can you really drag this out. Apparently, producer Frank Marshall's not ruled out the possibility of future films. Now, apparently, in January 2022 this year, he said, we're going to sit down and we're going to see what the future is. So maybe we'll sort of touch upon that after we've gone through our listeners on the gramophone. Next up, we've got Chris. He says, I enjoyed it. Some Easter eggs and nostalgia definitely helped, though.
Yeah. I think this film carried itself just purely on the back of people loving the subject matter and remembering fondly the original films.
Next up, we've got Nicola. She says, was like the last season of Game of Thrones. Disappointing, yet satisfying. Basically, every good part was in the trailer.
I've got to respectfully disagree with... Was that Hannah, do you say?
That was Nicola.
Nicola, respectfully disagree. There was nothing enjoyable about the final season of Game of Thrones. That was a hot mess. But everything else I agree with. Yeah,
definitely it's just, no satisfaction in season 8. We've said it so many times throughout the history of this podcast. Getting to see that season 8 belongs in the cold, briny depths.
It does. Have you heard this week, actually, Dan? This is going to be quite dated now by the time people listen to it in the future. So hello to people in the future. This is what we sound like in the past. They're doing the Jon Snow spin-off.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it needed?
No. But apparently it's being greenlit. They're going to be doing a King of the... It's not the North, is it? North
King of the Wall.
Yeah. Or the Northern... wildlings. Yeah, they're doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I couldn't care less about.
No one asked for it.
I mean, they kind of screwed over the fans in the last season. Why would anyone want to watch the prequel, which I'm still struggling to get any kind of vague interest for, and then a sequel about the wildlings, which were entertaining, but what more is there to tell?
Yeah.
That the White Walkers are dead. They're gone. Okay, you got some giants. You could have some civil war in there, but they're all united by the end of it. So what really is there left to tell? Apart from lots of barren wasteland in Northern Ireland? I don't know. Anyway, just thought I'd say that.
But yeah, I don't know if all the good parts were in the trailer, but then it could be a victim again of, say, the whole COVID thing. You know, we had Black Widow where we actually said in our review last year, they crammed all the good stuff in the trailer, and by the time you'd seen it, it was like, oh, that was trash.
Yeah, all the good bits were in the final 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah, pretty much. Next up, we got Phil. I tell you what, this is my friend I was talking to last night, and there was I'll get to it in a second. It made me laugh so hard. I was in bed. It was nearly 11 o'clock at night. For me, it lacks the suspense of the original film. Only Lost World can really compare to an extent. You don't really feel scared anymore watching these films. Visually, they look stunning, but they just don't quite grab me. Colin Trevorrow promised a film about dinosaurs living with us and how we adapt to it. And we got A Bug's Life. I wouldn't necessarily agree with the suspense part. As we mentioned, there were bits you kind of know it's coming, but when it does happen, it's unexpected. Like I said, we had the Spinosaurus, which absolutely scared the living shit out of me. But I'd say, I mean, visually stunning, I would certainly agree with.
Yeah.
For sure. A Bug's Life, yeah. I mean, we've sort of touched on it a little way back in the episode. Yeah, it just felt like the locusts were more of the pest than the dinosaurs, which is a shame, but never mind. And last up, we got Gary. He says, it had the storylines us fans have really been waiting for. I think there might be some sarcasm here. A kidnapping and a bug problem causing farming issues. None of the dinosaurs in the real world stuff apart from a small segment at the start. That would have been terrible. And he's put a little frowny face. Yeah.
Don't you think it kind of reminds me, I don't know why, a bit like the late 90s disaster movies.
Oh, some of our favourites. Yeah.
Yeah, like it kind of feels a bit like Twister. Very kind of kitsch, very... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes any sense, but it kind of... It's a bit silly.
Another good episode for people to touch upon. Favourite 90s films where I talked about some of my favourite disaster films, which then inspired a COVID episode back in 2020 where we talked about more disaster films. It's a good one to check out.
Good hangover cures, as we find out in that episode.
Volcano, Twister, A Day After Tomorrow. We could go
Dante's Peak, all of them.
So good. But that was it for social media, Alex. But we got a voice message from Howard, who appeared in 2020's episode where we looked through all the Star Wars films. He was overly critical of our episode of The Lost Kingdom.
Yes, vocally so.
I mean, hopefully we've improved a lot since those days of the podcast. We've been a little bit more critical for you, Howard. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts. We've got a voice note, which we're going to listen to now.
The only way I can describe the film is that it was the most convenient film I've ever seen, in that everything resolved in the most convenient way possible. Like the characters from the previous films. I think this says a lot about the sort of standard of the films, in that if you asked me to name them, I couldn't name them. I don't know who Chris Pratt's character is called, what his name is. I don't know who Bryce Dallas Howard's name is. The girl that plays the sort of like the clone girl, who turns out not to be a clone. I don't know what her name was, and I IMDb'd her afterwards because I was like, I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else, and she hasn't been in anything else. And this is probably a bit harsh on a child actor, or whatever she is now. She was awful. She's like the worst part of the last two films. It's just like really awful, like wooden acting. It just really takes you out of it. But yeah, it was just the original cast coming back. That was quite interesting, but they had a really boring story to tell about crops and sort of evil corporations and stuff. It was just a really bad film that it was just seemed like they just rushed to get it done, so they could just put a bookend on it, and that's fine. But it's just not a particularly enjoyable way to spend 2.5 hours. It was so long. It was an incredibly long film, and there was just like no sort of like, everything was really like on the nose and sort of like telegraphed like minutes before, and just like there was no like, you don't have any peril whatsoever in any of the moments because you just knew that they were all going to be fine. And then obviously at the end they all come together and win, and it was just I feel sorry for the original cast because they sort of like they're respected actors, and they were in the originals and the best, but now they've sort of been dragged back in to sort of breathe life into what is essentially a corpse right now. But yeah, that's my opinion. Thought it was solid 1.5 out of 5 stars, maybe a 2 if I was being generous, but No, not for me.
And number 2, Dan, the original cast breathing life into what is essentially a corpse. So Howard obviously liked the film. Yeah, I mean it's fair with late observations. I think a lot of the tones that Howard's picked up on, I think we've talked about so far, and yeah. I mean, did you feel the time dragging, Dan? Did you feel as perhaps dejected as Howard sounds in your experience of the cinema?
No, I mean, I say I'd agree that the opening sort of third of the film was quite long. That's when it sort of felt like it dragged a little bit.
Yeah.
And perhaps at times where I sort of felt myself becoming a bit disinterested or not quite as invested as I would have liked. And, I would agree. The original cast come back in and they sort of like pull you back in. But no, in a way, I do agree with Howard. They got the shitty part of the storyline, let's deal with Bison and locusts.
Yeah.
They survived Jurassic Park. They should be fighting dinosaurs or something. They could have had something better than... I mean, the locusts just sort of felt like they were shoehorned in as a convenience to pull the two parties together.
Yeah, and I think you could have done it probably a much better and meaningful way. So maybe a 2 out of 5 for Howard, and I don't think that's too far off. Kind of where I'm at, but I probably wouldn't give it a 2 out of. I'd probably give it maybe a 3, just because I enjoyed it for what it was, but I can see why Howard perhaps wanted something which was more truer to kind of the original vibe and doing right by the original cast.
I'm going to be a little bit more generous. I'm going to go for a 3.5 out of 5.
Pushing the boundaries.
I think perhaps I probably enjoyed it more than most.
Okay. Well, what's next for the franchise, Dan? Would you expect to see anything else? As you say, there were no cutscenes. There wasn't anything open-ended. Is there a future for the dinosaurs?
I don't know where you could take it now, to be honest. I agree with Hannah in some respects that, it does feel a bit samey now. What else could you do? Oh no, we're trapped in the car. There's a T-Rex outside. Yeah. And then, it's the same in number 2. You've got a slightly meatier car. Oh no, there's 2 T-Rexes outside. And then Jurassic Park 3. Well, what can we do instead of a car? No, we'll do a boat. We didn't quite get that in Jurassic World or Jurassic World 2. More unleashing dinosaurs upon the park en masse, I guess, or in a bloody mansion. And then, of course, Jurassic World 3. Well, it was dinosaurs all over the place. I don't quite know how much more you can do with it, to be honest, without it being samey.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've probably looked at every possible conceivable use of a dinosaur. They've entertained corporate espionage all the way through from the beginning to the end. They've looked at military applications. They've looked at them roaming the planet, which we never thought would happen. But of course, at the end of Fallen Kingdom, that's what they suggested. And of course, we saw some of it, perhaps not too much of what we should have done in this one. I mean, I just can't. I can't see where it would go enough for us to care. Unless they did some kind of survival horror spin-off. I don't know. A school trip gone wrong. And it could be a pure horror, but then kind of that's already kind of been done.
You've got Camp Cretaceous on Netflix as well, which is like an animated series. And again, we've had Jurassic Park where it showed the failures of, trying to open a theme park. And then you had Jurassic World where it showed the success, to an extent before it all went to shit. But I can't see how much more you can do with it. And to be honest, knowing Hollywood, it'll probably get rebooted anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Which is kind of what they did with Jurassic World.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'll probably give a third try at the same storyline.
It's always the way, because mentioned earlier, Hollywood just seemed to be running out of ideas, and what better thing to do than either A, reboot it and start from scratch, or B, do a load of side stories.
Or C, do a remaster.
Yeah.
Just re-release it and hope that the sheeple will go and see it again.
We're a bit of a sheeple. As soon as we got the wind of the 25th birthday, we were there for your birthday.
Oh, yeah, it was beautiful.
It was good. Joe, I loved that evening. So much fun.
Very romantic.
It was. But I guess that wraps up for Dominion. We need to figure out what we're going to do next. Of course, we're not far off Thor: Love and Thunder being released, so we'll of course review that. I need to try and jump on Stranger Things because one of our listeners wants us to do an episode on that.
Yeah,
I just haven't found the time yet. Of course, in September we'll have Cobra Kai season 5.
Oh, yes.
I'm looking forward to that. I think that must be about it, really. We need to move away from the reviews and do some obscure episodes again. It's been a while.
It has. Looking forward to those. We have got some super secret squirrel episodes we can't talk about, but hopefully we'll be inviting some people on to the show again, like we did last year. But we don't say too much in case diaries can't align. But we've got perhaps some very exciting opportunities just around the corner. So hopefully we should be able to release a little bit more about that in the coming weeks.
Oh, well, I really do hope so.
No, fingers crossed. But if people have an idea or an opinion, or they want to get in contact, Dan, what's the contact details?
We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at On The Topic Pod. And if you follow any of those socials, I will put a link into the posts where you can leave us a voice message through Anchor. So just click on the link and that will take you through to use your mobile device and leave a voice message, much like Howard has in this episode. And of course, we've got WordPress. You got the details for that one, Alex? I can never remember them.
Yep, it's nice and easy, Dan. It's all lowercase, all one word, on the topic podcast.wordpress.com. All you've got to do is navigate to that web page. You'll see our ugly mugs, bios. You can see our affiliate site content from Morbid and Mundane and go and browse those lovely, lovely garments and t-shirts. And you can listen to our whole back catalogue, all the way from the weekly roundup to the recent OTTs. So if you want to stream straight from the website, you can do that. And we've got a lovely also newsletter if you want to sign up and get notification of our latest drops. And perhaps you don't look at the social media, then you can sign up to our newsletter and get promptly notified when we drop some lovely, time-relevant, delicious audio.
Oh, it's stunning. And brushing off the spoiler alert klaxon to boot. But as Alex said, if there's anything you want us to cover, I mean, we've got a list of things to do anyway. We'll no doubt get our heads together at the end of this and figure out what's next.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to a bit of Thor: Love and Thunder soon. Can't wait.
Yeah, looking forward to a bit of Jane wielding Mjolnir.
Indeed. But I think that rounds it up this week, Alex.
It does.
So for another week, I've been Dan, and I'm off to try and figure out how I'm going to get away on an electric scooter.
I'm wearing my leather jackets, lecturing the masses, and letting the girls swoon over me. I'm Alex.
And we're off to save some dinosaurs. We'll see you next time.